Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. Mitch McConnell says they'll get over it. That's right, they'll get over the Medicaid cuts because you know what? Well, it's not that big a deal. Well, that depends on who you are, what you look like, what your net worth is, what kind of pension you got. Well, that's right. Black folks in America have low net worth. Black folks in America don't really have pensions. But they'll get over it. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock and Ellis, for On Two Men in Black and White. He joins us now from the beautiful Hudson Valley in upstate New York, right outside New York City, where we had some election results yesterday. But first, Brock, Mitch McConnell says, get over it, especially you black people. Now, here's the deal, Brock. They're saying these new cuts in President Trump's big beautiful bill. What an idiot that guy is. But 16 million scheduled to lose Medicaid benefits. How scary is that? I mean, 16 million people, all of them in mostly rural areas, a lot in rural areas too. It's going to affect some poor white Americans as well. But mostly those impacts are going to be felt by dark people. People with dark hue, dark skin, like mine, black folk.
This is why Mitch doesn't care because he hasn't been, he had the Confederate flag in his office, right? So like he's not even talking or he hasn't even seen black people, right? He's just steamrolled over them. But I did see a good clip from Black Voters Matter, which had a guest on, and she had done the analysis, and her estimates were that 9 million black people were going to lose health insurance one way or another if this, big ugly bill actually makes its way through. And that's a combination of the Medicaid.
9 million?
So that's a combination of the Medicaid, the losses due to Medicaid getting cut, and then the subsequent higher prices that would roll over and occur on the Obamacare exchanges, which would price out a lot of black families from being able to afford. So that would be like the subsequent secondary impact of these cuts. And Mitch and Joni Ernst of the world, right? They'll get over it. Hey, everybody dies, right? That was the message a month ago. Hey, everyone's going to die anyway. Now it's just everyone's going to get over it. I think Joni Ernst is actually more correct than Mitch McConnell. People are just going to die, right? They're not going to get over it. They're going to die.
And again, it's us. It's black America. You figure 16 million people getting cut, 9 million of them black Americans, right? This is just like mass incarceration, right? How are we 40 million deep in the U.S. and now what? What is that? What, 25% of black people losing access to medical care? Come on, man. Is that going to get us doing something now?
Yeah, because how long till just people die, right? Like,
Right.
an incident happens, can't get treated, insulin, blood pressure pills, all the things that like you just can't miss them, right? You can't have a gap in your healthcare on those particular topics. So it's devastating. And why are these Medicaid cuts required, Mark? Why do we need these cuts?
We don't. We don't. But rich people need more yachts to water ski behind.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
Jeff Bezos.
Exactly. It's tax cuts for the wealthy, right?
Right. So Jeff Bezos can have a $20 million wedding in Venice. Right? So he can power his yacht, through and just, blow away the gondolas outside the canals in Venice. Right? Like, how greedy are these people that they're taking away what seems to be a human right in many other developed countries, but not here. Not here. No, it's haves and have-nots. And far too often in this country, black folks end up as the have-nots. And it just tells you, how they couldn't give a damn about black America. And that's the point. Now, maybe folks are going to start educating themselves about what's in this bill and start to try to force a little pushback because Lord knows we need it. Lord knows we need it at this point because somebody in my family's getting kicked off. right? 5%,
Somebody in everybody's family is
no
losing
doubt.
health, right? We
No
talk about
doubt.
kitchen table issues versus living room issues.
Right.
I don't know what room this is discussed in, but every family, the work is going to know about their cousin, aunt, parent, brother, sister, and the like, who now can't afford health care, has gotten kicked off the health care rolls, right? It's going to be the conversation in
Right.
everyone's family. And
Right.
I mean, we'll look at it a couple ways. We keep talking about how Black America has not been out protesting yet
Right. Right.
because there's been fatigue, and it's like, what's it going to take?
Well, this might be it.
This bill is a direct assault on the Black community, and the callousness with which it's talked about by old white leaders is unfucking believable. Right? It's
Well,
not
you know
even
how they
like,
feel. You know
it's
how
not
they
even
feel.
like, it's not even like, oh, this is terrible, but we really got to tighten the belt, and this is what America needs to do for this reason or that reason. It's not like, oh, well, we're going to war and everyone's got to like sacrifice something or the other. It's literally so that 1% can get more tax cuts. I mean,
Right.
this is the
Period.
offset. Black lives against white wealth. I mean, it's just a flat offset in decision. Hopefully it riles up Black America. I feel like the conversation, you're going to tell me, but I feel like the conversations are going to change as people become more aware of what's coming down the pipe.
Absolutely, because my conversation is going to change. When I see black people from now on, I'm going to be asking, are you aware that 25% of all black people are going to be kicked off of their health care benefits and lose access to health care? Also, Brock, when you talked about, diabetes medication, high blood pressure, who does that affect? Right? Those are two of the biggest perpetrators and, thieves of black lives in our community. Right? You talk about amputations. You know how much it costs to have a limb amputated, because of diabetes care and mismanagement, right? You know how much it is to have treatment, inpatient treatment for a stroke and then rehab, right? Like people are literally going to be left to die on the streets. And then also, we're going to have hospitals closing in rural and urban areas, just like we're seeing here in Atlanta, where we had one of our main urban center hospitals closed. But you know who's going to do well, Brock? The 1%, the top 1%, and those people running private prisons, right? So they can continue to lock black folks up, right? And continue to try to eradicate, the black species here in America, get rid of us all. I mean, that seems to be the goal. And then, of course, build their ICE detention facilities, right? They're even talking about building one in Louisiana with a natural barrier that happens to be the Everglades swamp, right? Because it's cruelty for the sake of cruelty.
Yeah, no,
Let them run into the swamp. They'll never get away.
That's the one in Florida that DeSantis is
Yeah,
bragging
Florida.
about.
Yes, yeah.
Alligator Alley, and they think they can
Yes.
build it in like 2 months and get like 1,000 people jammed in there. Yeah, like it's
Exactly.
an old Alcatraz thing. Yeah, like there's a moat
Right.
from 1400s where if you escape, you're gonna get eaten by the alligators.
Exactly.
It's fucking ridiculous. But it's more glaringly obvious about what's going on out there, and obvious wakes people up, right? Subtlety sometimes slips by people that are busy, but this is like blunt force trauma, right? This is a direct punch to the face.
Yeah, yeah. It's a punch in the face. It's also a hit below the belt because it lets Americans know that your life is not nearly as valuable as those at the top, as the rich white males at the
It's
top.
a direct statement. I'm really curious. I'm going to keep a close eye on what is going on, like in rural America, in a lot of those red rural states, right?
Oh,
Because
gonna get
those,
hammered.
they have a ton of Medicaid patients that's the other people that are going to get thrown off of health care, right? And whether they realize it yet. And, the classic, oh, we didn't vote for this, right? It's going to be another level of we didn't vote for this. When
Right.
reality is like, yeah, this is exactly what you voted for. It's in Project 2025. You were told, you knew, you wanted your racism, and you thought only the black communities were going to be impacted by this, but you're getting it right in your backyard now. So I don't know if it riles them up again in those rural town halls, or if it gets them out on the street actually
Right.
with black and brown America, because now everyone's got a gripe, right? The Latinos are getting thrown in gulags, Black people are now getting thrown off the healthcare rolls, right? Rural white people are getting thrown off the healthcare rolls. So you're starting to build what could be a unified opposition.
Right.
And then hopefully you get some white people that are actually want to live in a democratic country, which we've kind of seen out there on the streets in their very polite marches already, that, you know, with some extra reinforcements, and then maybe we get those big numbers we've talked about. But it's got to happen quick because, you know, like we just said, you don't get to miss very many insulin injections. You don't get to go. You don't get to go to every other day. You don't get to scale back on your insulin, right?
Not at all.
It's not like I'm cutting down on sweets or alcohol, or I'm not going to drink as much caffeine. It's like you got to have that every day. Like there's no pretty binary. Either you have it or you die.
Right. It's not like you drink a little bit more water and, you know, your blood sugar stabilizes. So, you know, but the other thing too, Brock, is this thing could be done by next week, right? This bill could be passed by next week. They're talking about getting it done by July 4th, right? And people are just now starting to figure out exactly what's in it, which is the scary part. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, some of these influencers that have huge reaches start reaching out to the Black community and letting them know exactly how dire the existence of Black America is in peril right now, and start letting them know exactly that.
Well, Mitch,
because that's what this is.
McConnell says this has to pass. That right? That was the other part of his comments. Like this has to happen.
Failure is not an option.
Tom Tillis in North Carolina, who, you know, I mean, Mitch is retiring, right? Or he's just going to die one of these days. But I think he's not running again, so he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. But Tillis in North Carolina now is wavering a little bit on the bill because he's starting to realize how many people are going to get kicked off of Medicaid. And I'm sure he doesn't give a shit about the Black people in North Carolina that are going to lose Medicaid, but I'm sure he's hearing it from the white people in North Carolina that are going to get kicked off of Medicaid.
Right, who've already been devastated by storms that they couldn't get help with, right? Because Appalachia, right, up there, like places like Boone, North Carolina, who got absolutely hammered with storms. And then, you know, FEMA, Joe Biden and FEMA, where's FEMA? Where's FEMA? Donald Trump's not getting you any help, right? And now all those folks in rural North Carolina, I mean, how many city centers do you have in North Carolina, right? Most of the state is rural. You know, you got Raleigh, Durham, and Greensboro. That's about it.
So some of these states where these senators had close races, right? They didn't win by much. So they don't have the luxury of, you know, pissing off a bunch of their voters.
Right.
Hopefully, yeah, there's going to have to be a lot of noise made. Sadly, I think it pushes through. I think it gets passed because everything has gotten passed. Because we've never seen anyone actually stand up to Trump in any way, shape, or form. So I'm really pessimistic. I think, and July 4th is apparently their target date. So I think it's going to go through, and I think people are just going to feel a lot of pain. And the only recourse is to get out in the streets and stop talking about the fucking midterms. It's 18 months away. You know, shit's got to happen way ahead of the midterms.
What I'm hoping, Brock, that goes our way and that what falls our way is that in the next week, people just rise up and just say, we're not having this. This is way too far. And the military says, you know what? If you're going to be kicking the ass of a guy, Alejandro Barranco, with 3 kids in willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice, U.S. Marines, right? We're not going to come out and support this. And oh, by the way, Donald Trump, I saw a video today of a woman of thebrave.org who talked about her father, a 3-star general who died in January and hasn't been buried yet because of the backups at Arlington, right? Because of the inefficiencies at Arlington National Cemetery. Trump talks about, you know, he never served, but he talks, you know, like he loves the military. Right? He loves the military because he wants it to be his little toy, his little plaything, his muscle, right? As if he was some, you know, mafia don and, you know, his leg breakers are the U.S. military. I'm hoping the U.S. military finally says, you know what, go pound sand. We're not following your illegal orders to you know, put the hammer down on American citizens.
Well, he was trying to shut down all the testy questions he was getting about the bombing of Iran today because he was over at NATO meetings with Hegseth and Rubio on the stage with him. And he was like shouting down, he called CNN scum and New York Times scum for reporting that the bombings did not take out the Iran nuclear site. And now they're chasing down a leak, and now they're not going to show Congress intelligence anymore. It's a whole shit show. But Trump's whole argument was that it wasn't fair to the brave pilots that executed the order and dropped the bombs because they weren't feeling good, and that he spoke to some of the pilots and they were feeling terrible that there was some criticism that maybe their bombs hadn't taken out the nuclear facilities. That's the way he was trying to play it. Like the military men were being denigrated because there was a question of what the actual result was of these bombings. He's such a fraud that I don't need, it's past the point that anyone in America can, even with a straight face, believe anything he says. And it bothers me every single fucking day when I see any kind of headline or story that starts with Trump said, because what's coming after it is a lie, and it's a lie only to feed his malignant narcissist ego and only to win the day in the media, and it's going to be a lie that's about him and right. Him only, and the rest right. of us don't matter. And right. How's everyone in the world, the rest of the world's figured it out, but how are people in America still under the charade that anything that Trump does has anything to do with anyone but himself?
You still see people on social media defending this lunatic. Now, I don't know, how many of them are bots, but people are defending this dude like he's a real president, right? And not a real moron. And it's amazing to me. So, there is a movement afoot, though, to tell the stories about the people who've actually been hurt by Trump's policies. You know how a lot of his defenders like to say, oh, but I like his policies, right? So Of the Brave, I've been talking about it here for a couple of minutes now, ofthebrave.org is compiling stories of people who have been hurt by Trump policies. They're sending in the videos, they're speaking out, they're taking the chance, right, of, being retaliated against, of course, because we know that's not, beneath Trump to go ahead and retaliate against them. And they are, compiling these stories at one cool website. And that's where I heard the story about the 3-star general at Arlington who died in January, right? And his parents his family can't even, properly grieve because Trump is a psychopath. So, I think stories like that are going to get out and continue, to start to drive the narrative. The other funny thing I heard today was that the Democrats' narrative about, the billionaire class getting these tax breaks at the expense of the regular working class American. People are starting to think that message is starting to hit home, with the resistance and with progressives. And I get it, but it's, again, is it the unifying message?
It's a piece of the unifying message, right? We keep saying it's half the message. Right. So I'm from the camp, I'll take half the message to get the ball rolling, because I think there's been some overlays on the message. Gavin Newsom out with a very aggressive pro-immigrant message on social media, not just a middle-of-the-road messaging. A flat-out, California is the 4th largest economy in the world, and in his view, the greatest place to live, but we'll put that aside. He even put it in the economic terms because of immigration. And he talked about the innovation and the workforce and the diversity of the workforce and all that, of why California is such an engine of growth in the world and for the United States. And I've been saying all along, no one ever just says they're pro-immigrant. Everyone on the Democratic side of the ledger always has to sort of like almost be embarrassed and apologize for immigration and talk about border security before they can talk about immigration, even though we're all immigrants, except for the Native Americans are all immigrants. So who the fuck, what is this bullshit? Of course we're a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. You can say, I don't like this next group of immigrants. You can try to carve them out, but don't just say that, don't say that America wasn't built on immigration. And the second thing that I think is just a seismic sort of event in the Democratic Party was the mayoral primary in New York, Democratic primary last night, where this 32-year-old Muslim American,
Gotta love it.
Andrew Cuomo, who had gotten the Clintons and Jim Clyburn and Bloomberg and all these very old and establishment Democrats as endorsements, and he got steamrolled. Andrew Cuomo got steamrolled. He got run out of New York City. And it's really interesting because the Democratic establishment doesn't want this type of candidate winning. But
Right.
I've been saying all along that the party's much more progressive than the leadership right now. And what's his name? Ken Martin out there running the party, kicking David Hogg out, and Elisa Slotkin with her wake and woke. This guy's as woke as they come. He's a Democratic socialist like Bernie Sanders. You know, the MAGA's going to have a field day with their with their racism, their Islamophobia, the socialism. They're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink to try to not let this guy win.
Right.
Because Eric Adams is still in the race. Supposedly Cuomo might run as an independent and there'll be a Republican candidate. So New York's going to be this crazy melting pot of a mayor's race for the next 4 or 5 months before we get to November. But I think it's the best thing that could happen to the Democrats. To me, it should be a wake-up call. And they should be like, whoa, weak and woke. This guy's weak and woke. Proudly weak and woke.
Right.
And he mopped the floor with Andrew Cuomo.
With Andrew Cuomo, right. But you know what? It, like you said, you know, when you bump David Hogg, a guy who for his generation is an icon, right? Like young kids know David Hogg, right? Especially those who are reading anything, and especially after the experience that he went through, and what him and his classmates were able to do. And the kind of movement they were able to generate. Like, if you can't embrace leadership like that, what's wrong with you, right? Because it's about something else now, because it's not truly about making America better. It's more about you maintaining power.
The one thing I forgot to say about what went on in New York, and I think this is the first election in my lifetime that is being attributed to young voters came out for this 32-year-old Muslim against Andrew Cuomo.
Wow.
Young voter turnout, supposedly. We haven't seen all the numbers yet, but after a day of analysis, young voters came out. And right, there's always the hope that young voters are going to come out, and then they never do, right? And they always disappoint, and then everyone goes back to catering to the 65-year-old white guy in the diner because they know that guy's going to vote, right? And that's why the policies go that way, because older people vote. But in New York, that was a different dynamic. But it goes back. It reminded me when you mentioned David Hogg, because you know, that's the younger voter. That no one's afraid of the younger voter because everyone thinks, oh, they're going to say it. There's going to be a lot of TikToks, but they're not going to show up on election day.
Exactly. And when they start showing up,
they haven't showed up in the protests yet.
No.
Oh, but by the way, a whole bunch of them are going to have their wages garnished. Any of them that have jobs starting this summer. Any of them that had college debt. Money's just going to come right out of their paychecks.
Right. Can you see the Kamala Harris memes already? Couldn't vote for the brown lady, huh? Right, with money flying out of your wallet, right? That you don't have, right? Because wages are down. Right. And so, you know, it'll be an interesting summer. It's going to be a hot, ugly summer because these protests have got to jump off. They've got to be mean and nasty. They've got to hit Donald Trump in the mouth. And I still agree. I think you still agree. They've got to be led by white America with a strong and dynamic and loud, multicultural, multi-ethnic, you know, coalition behind them. Ready to say this, we want our country back, the collective.
New York may have delivered a blueprint.
Right.
Why this 32-year-old Muslim won is that it was ranked choice voting, and him and the guy who came in third place, Brad Lander, the controller, Jewish guy.
Right.
And the woman who came in fourth place, black woman. The three of them cross-endorsed each other. And say, hey, if you're not going to vote for me, vote for one of those two. Hey, if you're not going to vote for me, or if you vote for me first, vote for one of these two second. Just don't vote for the old white guy because he's the same old. Right. He's got all the old timers on his pocket. He's all about corporate, right?
Yep.
And what I think young people maybe are waking up to, not only do they have to pay more, they have to pay all the college loans back, but they're not worried about taxes, the boogeyman of taxes. Because you think about it this way. If somebody's out there telling you that they're going to put a cap on rents, which are killing young people because they can't own houses, right? Oh, I'm going to put a cap on rents. So your $3,000 rent ain't going up to, can only go up, ain't going to go up to $3,500. That's how much it is in New York, right? So that's like $500 a month you're going to save. Well, that's 12 months. That's $6,000. That's $6,000 you're going to save from that guy who's telling you he's not going to let them jack the rents up on you. You know what? Guess what? You're willing to pay an extra $2,000 in your measly salary if you're saving $6,000. So the math starts working out for these younger people who are renters. So this message about affordable housing resonates with them, among other messages. And of course, the Andrew Cuomo's and the old-time white establishment Democratic Party that's tied in with the corporations, they don't like that because the corporations are the ones who own the buildings that want to raise all the rents. And that gets back to the Bernie message. That gets back to the economic message and the haves and the have-nots message. And in New York, the have-nots had their day yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And
maybe it's a blueprint. I hope it's a blueprint for protests going forward.
That makes good sense.
You're going to have to gauge. You know, once again, that's what riled up a lot of the white voters in New York, right? Younger white voters were riled up by the fact that it's too expensive to live there.
Right.
And who's going to make it their lives?
Right. And I think a lot of these young college kids, and especially white college kids who don't have incredibly affluent parents, who may be first-generation college students, you know, from rural areas and whatnot, they're starting to understand that everybody's been bailed out except them. Right? We bailed out the auto industry. We bailed out the banking industry. We bailed out everybody, the airplane industry. We bailed out everybody except American, right? Especially, and now young Americans with college debt had their bailout snatched out from under them, you know, by what appears to be a questionable at best, you know, political presidential election. And so, you know, I think we see them start to get into what looks like, you know, what the engine against, you know, Trump and his fucking agenda, because the agenda is absolutely sickening. And anybody who is still on board with his, I like his policies, right? You know, go straight to hell. You know,
Mike,
go straight to hell.
You make a really good point that I hadn't even thought about before. Not only are these younger kids, and I'm thinking of the ones that have come out of college now, many of them have to live at home because they can't afford it. So, but even their parents, aka us, our ages type of people, we got bailed out.
Right.
We got bailed out. When we had the financial crisis, they bailed out all the banks and they made sure the economy didn't, you know, we had a short dip, we all freaked out, and then they threw a ton of money at the banks and all that to shore up the system. When the housing crisis crashed, some people got screwed, but they did a lot to like try to cushion people who had gotten hurt along the way, right? So even when the parents tell their kids they got to pull up the bootstraps, kind of bullshit. Hey, to be honest, even when COVID hit, right? It was people that had. They made sure that the paychecks kept rolling. They gave money to the. They gave money to the company so that the company could still pay people, even though the people weren't going to work. Right.
Right.
Mass layoffs. Right. Wasn't mass layoffs like, fuck, we got to keep everyone employed, otherwise it's going to be a total shit show. Right. So yeah, if you're younger and you're like, well, shit, we're fucked right now, but no one's got a hand, no one for us, right? So I would think a younger person may even look at their parents and go, yeah, well, you know, you got bailed out. Yeah, you got bailed out a few times, didn't you? You got helped out a bunch of times.
And then look at those wealthy, you know, the kids from wealthier families. You got PPP loans, some of which did not have to be paid back. Ain't that something, right? Don't that beat all?
And now you got cuts to make up for any. I mean, you're constantly getting tax cuts.
Right.
Constantly.
And now my parents who voted for this shit, you know, are going to sit here and watch me get, you know, $1,000, $1,100 snatched out of my wallet, you know, every pay period, you know. And now I've got to move back home with those same people because I can't swing, you know, a $1,500 a month college payment plus rent plus food plus car plus insurance plus cable plus phone plus, you know, social media music. Like,
That's why
How do you do it?
that's why the capping rents resonates, because for a
Yep.
lot of younger people who are mostly the renters in this world, right? Older people own homes, and younger people can't afford to own homes, right? They're renting, they're still paying off debt.
Yeah.
It resonates with them because it is the difference between being able to scratch by and live by yourself and moving back home, which, by the way,
No doubt.
no one wants to fucking move back home. Come on.
No doubt.
Trying to have a
No
date.
doubt.
You got to be in your fucking, your parents are in the living room watching Jeopardy or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Who wants to do that?
Yeah,
You
no
know?
one wants. That's why that resonates.
Right. Especially
All right,
after
yeah,
4 years
it
of
was
freedom.
an interesting day. Think the pot stirring, resistance messaging is changing a little bit.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing. From my point of view, the progressive side is kind of winning, and some of the messaging is coming a little bit more our way.
Yeah.
But Project 2025 MAGA white supremacy is still rolling along and taking shit from the rest of us. My only
Buddy.
quick hit for you is, it got me to thinking when you were bringing it up. Isn't it interesting? Bezos is spending all that money overseas, right?
Right.
All that money's going to another country's coffers. As much as
Right.
the people of Venice don't want him
20
there.
million bucks. 20 million. 20 million bucks he's given to the government of Italy. And he's parking his $500 million yacht right off the coast. Oh my God, it's obscene.
Somebody's making money off of his wedding there, but it's not made in
Exactly.
America, right? It's not
Right.
made in America.
At
No.
all. Just like the Make America Great hats again that are made in China. Ridiculous. All right, buddy. Always a pleasure.
All right, good stuff. I'll talk to you tomorrow, Mark.
Sounds good. Peace.